Hello, my friends, and welcome to the first episode of the dreaded Haggard podcast. Today I'm joined by the legendary Aerocrastic, and we're going to be going through every faction in Total War Warhammer 2 and talking about what, in our opinions, are the most annoying units to play against for all those factions. So, a little bit of a strange first topic, but it's a fun one. We're going to be talking about skinks, all sorts of good stuff. Probably a lot of missile cav, I would imagine. But how you doing, Aerocrastic? Thank you for joining. How's life treating you, man?
Hey, Turin. Thanks for the intro, and doing pretty well. Going through a little bit of a transition in my life right now, but of course we're here to talk about Warhammer, so why don't we delve right into that?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about, like I said, every faction, what we think are the most annoying units from a multiplayer perspective. Obviously, if we were to talk about like campaign, I think it would be vastly different. In campaign, I don't know. Yeah, in your experience, before we get going into like the main multiplayer topic, in your campaign experience, what have you found to be the most annoying faction to play against? For me, it's always Skaven with those like summons, and obviously, you have to deal with like nukes occasionally if you're facing Ikit.
Yeah, Skaven definitely ranks up there on the list. If it's okay for me to cheat a little bit, I would probably have to say, so either the Empire if you're playing Chaos, or just generally any faction that's going to spam heroes against you.
Dude, the Chaos campaign is pretty... I did a Sigvald campaign a while back, and it was on Legendary, and dude, that was... Dude, if you make like one mistake, like make one wrong move order, and you don't have your Shaggoth Doom stack yet, man, it is a rough one. They definitely need some love, But yeah, we're here to talk about multiplayer. That's our specialty. So we shall jump in with the first faction of the day, which is going to be the Beastmen. So in your experience playing against the Beastmen, what is the one unit you dread or that stresses you out or you just don't enjoy playing against?
If I had to say, I'd probably have to lean towards either Chaos Spawn or Razor War Herds. Obviously, like for me, the easy choice here would just be to say, let's just pick out the Beastcaster because the Manticore summons.
Yeah, of course.
I'd say like in defense of Chaos Spawn, so obviously the Beastmen roster is not really known for its great leadership.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can get that really nice, shock damage in on a Beastmen army, get a bunch of units routing, but Chaos Spawn are unbreakable. So they stick around, very sticky, very annoying unit. And kind of similar thing with Razor Gore Herd, just because of how cost effective they are. It's a really obnoxious unit for a lot of factions to deal with, for sure.
Yeah, man, I would have to 100% agree with you on the Spawn. And yeah, we might not agree on all of these, but I certainly do with this one. I don't know what it is about Spawn, but I remember like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, making a video like about, the worst units for each faction. And many people I talked to, high level players were saying, yeah, Spawn were bad. And then there was just this weird paradigm shift. I don't know if people discovered that Spawn were good, but if memory serves, I think there was like a cost reduction, but in some, minor stat tweaks. But dude, Spawn are just... you got to work so hard to stop them. I think you could get like an average level player, someone who's maybe more intermediate, maybe more towards the beginner side of things. They can get a wall of Ungor Spearman herds stacked with Chaos Spawn, and you have to work pretty hard to stop that. It's aggressive. They're obviously unbreakable, and you raised a really good point about them providing the Beastmen with an unbreakable buffer. Like pretty much every build I do with the Warriors of Chaos now is like Marauders. I don't care who I'm playing. It's Marauders with like Spawn backing it up. It's so cost effective and yeah, it's not irritating in the traditional sense of like a kiting unit being annoying, but yeah, man, Spawn are just a pain to deal with. I feel like for almost, most factions, and the Beastmen ones also do have a poison, which makes them pretty solid for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like the fact that they did in fact get I believe 100 cost decrease some time ago, and honestly, like slap 100 gold off of any unit's price and it'll become good.
Yeah. I guess that's all it was, man, because I remember... Like, do you remember, like, they were just considered to be so terrible before? Like, I don't know. Did they get some, like, melee attack buffs or something like that? Or, like, in conjunction with the cost increase? I guess it was so long ago. Like, how would we remember?
Yeah, they might have gotten, like, 2 melee attack. I don't remember exactly. But honestly, the big one is just the jump in price from 1,000 to 900 gold, which basically puts them in a complete different tier of monstrous infantry.
Yeah, man. And they're, like... Even when you compare them to more expensive infantry, like Minotaurs, for example, right? Like, Minotaurs might have, better AP values and stopping power, but... The fact that they're unbreakable is just such a boon. It's especially for Beastmen, because even, Minotaurs, I mean, let's look. If we look at baseline Minotaurs here with the dual weapons, yeah, their base leadership 65, right? That's not going to be terribly difficult to break. Minotaurs, with the exception of the Butchers of Kalkengard, can be terror routed as well. So, it's, the Spawn really do some heavy work, man. Yeah, they're slower than Minotaurs, but the unbreakable thing, I think you really hit the nail on the head with that one. But yeah, I would agree, man. Like, Spawner, it's so annoying having to, like, cut through Spawn, especially if you're a newer player. And, the Beastmen are already really good at collapsing your front line. They get 2 more Spawn from Morgherd. They also get, like, Manticore summons. It's a pain to deal with all those beasties, man.
Yeah. Spawn everywhere.
Dude, it's so annoying, man. And now on to our next candidate here. We won't dwell too long on the spawn. So if you're facing the mighty Knights of Bretonnia, I feel like, now that we're on Bretonnia, I feel like there's not going to be that much that's really that annoying on the Bretonian roster, which may correlate to their kind of power level. But in your opinion, what is like the most irritating Bretonian unit you can think of? It's hard, right? Yeah.
I'm kind of split between two things here. So if we're going with heroes, I'd say Gotrek, the infantry-sized giant.
Just Gotrek.
Yeah. Aside from him, questing knights are a big one. So for the longest time, questing knights have been probably like hands down the best cavalry unit in the game.
Yeah.
And last patch, they randomly got one more melee defense. So, any people who've been feeling very comfortable with their like Lizardmen versus Bretonnia, for example, questing knights are there to make you feel pretty bad about yourself for sure. And this goes for quite a few other matchups as well, like Dark Elves, Chaos. Like I would say that it's very important for Bretonnia that this unit is strong, because it basically, I would argue, carries their roster.
Yeah.
At the same time, they're at such a high power level that they would probably be my contender for. If you're not playing against Bretonnia, you definitely hate to see these guys.
Yeah, questing knights are incredibly cost effective, and I think they're definitely in the top 3 in terms of like power level for kind of cav. You got like blood knights, you got questing knights. I think those bad boys are really good, and yeah, they definitely address a big weakness. Like Bretonnia has always struggled dealing with big armor specifically, right? Things like Arachnarok spiders and whatnot. And questing knights are just like jack of all trades, man. Like they can deal with infantry pretty effectively. I mean, they have a decent charge bonus at 41, not like great shock cav, but they're still functional at it. But the AP values, the armor, the good leadership, the good baseline combat stats. So even if they are in sustained combat, they're pretty good. But again, man, I would have to agree with you on this one. Like that's one unit I would definitely dread because I'm like, oh, great. They have an answer to like, a multitude of threats all in one package. But it's kind of interesting. Like, yeah, as far as like annoying, like really, if I'm thinking about Bretonnia overall, there's nothing there that I'm just like, God, like this is so annoying to play against. It's kind of just like, oh, that's a good unit,
Yeah.
And I feel like once we get to the Elvish factions, it's going to be more like, oh my God, that's annoying. Like that like makes your blood boil, makes your face go red, you rage quit, that kind of thing. But
yeah.
And on that note, Dark Elves, man, what are you feeling for Dark Elves? There are some great contenders here, dude. Like some seriously annoying units,
On to Dark Elves, I think my vote probably has to go over to the Witch Elves.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Oh man. Yeah, the Rampage.
It's a bit of a toss-up with Scourge Runners, but I think Witch Elves for sure, just because of that Rampage. Yeah. Oh my God. When you have something important that gets caught by Witch Elves, or more specifically when like you have your cycle charging really efficiently with your cavalry, making your way through that Dark Elf line, and then this like one random Witch Elf that's nowhere near the actual unit banner, just kind of like tickles the
pickle. Yeah.
Tickles the pickle a little on one of your units off to the side, and all of a sudden the whole thing just rampages into Blackguard.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Dude, Witch Elves are definitely very frustrating. For me, Witch Elves I would definitely say are top 3 in the most annoying units to play against. Arguably one of the more, Rampage mechanics in general are very frustrating and definitely enraging. For me, like, I don't know, I would say pre-nerf Scourge Runners were probably the most annoying for me because it's just like they can deal with everything. They're like the WD-40. They go in, they just go balls deep, they kill infantry. It's like, oh, there's a big monster. We also happen to have like AP anti-large and repeater crossbows. I think playing like so many games against Falcon and these other like really good Dark Elf players, like, dude, I can't tell you how many games I've just raged internally. Of course, I usually keep my calm on the exterior, but having like just all these Dark Riders that I just can't catch, I can't pin them down, and they're just like pounding all my high value assets. But for me, it'd probably be Dark Riders with repeater crossbows and the Scourge Runner chariots. But Witch Elves would be like a solid third for me because it's not as common. I feel that the Witch Elves get that like really juicy rampage on your big like big alpha target. But yeah, man, I agree with you, man.
Witch Elves have their shortcomings for sure, and obviously they're not as good versus as many factions as like Dark Rider repeater crossbows are. And like, definitely, I think there's like an extra little boost here for any unit that helps to kite you.
Yeah, the kite is
a little bit higher on that list for sure. I know a lot of people really hate being kited, so.
Yeah, the Rampage, like, for sure is really, like, that's just one of those moments where you, like, know you lose. You have that, like, sinking feeling when your Karl Franz gets, like, rampaged amongst, like, Malekith and Soul Stealers and Blackguard, like you said. Yeah, it's pretty painful. But, yeah, I think kiting is going to be a big part of, like, what's annoying. Like, Dark Riders, Scourge Runners, dude. And I have to say, like, the games I played against you, like, something I mentioned, I was actually casting one of your replays a couple days ago, that between you and Falcon. One of the things I said in the beginning is, like, you are so exceptional at using chariots, like in a very annoying manner. Like I remember every game we play, there's always like a doom wheel, a chariot hitting my front line and then drifting away from things that are chasing it, and it like just draws you out of position, man. And I think chariots will definitely be a contender as we go into other factions as well. You know?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. They can be some pretty obnoxious disruption tools.
Yeah, your chariot play I think is second to none for sure. And now we go to dwarves. What do you think about dwarves, man? What are you feeling?
I think this one's going to vary from player to player. For me, I'd have to say Ironbreakers.
Yeah, they're so irritating, dude. Just, oh my god, yeah.
They just tank and they blow you to bits with blasting charges, and sometimes even like because of how high their defensive stats are, it's also kind of difficult to abuse, like try to abuse them with monsters and things like that because they just tank it out. I think these are definitely the top contender, and it's usually not like one Ironbreaker, it's like two or maybe even three sometimes. It just kind of sits there staring at you menacingly.
Yeah, Ironbreakers are a real pain, dude. Yeah, that's a tough one because, like, that wasn't my initial thought, but after having heard you bring it up, I definitely could agree with you. I was gonna go with gyrocopters, like, and kind of like just generally say like, between the steam cannon and the brimstone gun, it's like a lot of good dwarf players. I feel like gyrocopters have become like a real staple in a lot of dwarf builds, just because of the fact that they, of course, got the anti-large on the brimstone guns, and they're just 105 speed. I think it's more of like trauma from ladder, because I remember I used to play a lot of ladder games, and obviously playing against dwarves after the gyrocopter buff, you'd play against like people bringing like as many flyers as they could, as many gyrocopters, and it's just so annoying. So yeah, I think we hit the nail on the head with this one. Like gyrocopters with brimstone guns, and then Ironbreakers are like both like, and they often go in tandem, right? Like if you're playing against a faction that can't really threaten your air force, you'll see like an Ironbreaker box with like Gotrek or Felix and like some dwarf characters with like gyrocopters flying around,
Yeah, it's definitely really obnoxious. They just kind of sit there, and once you lose all of your tools to deal with them as well, or if you just don't respect the fact that they can take that many of them, it definitely feels pretty bad to just get plinked away from the air, and you can't really do anything about it. I'd say for sure, like with the gyrocopters, something kind of unique about them is that So some matchups which are traditionally difficult, like Beastmen, for example, you can chase them with gyrocopters, despite the fact that they've got harpies and all that. Like if you manage to knock down, let's say, one of their 4 harpies, and you've got five flying shooting units, it just kind of snowballs from there. So yeah, gyrocopters definitely up there.
Yeah, 100%, man. And now to the great lands of the Empire. For Empire, they have some pretty annoying units for sure. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like, I'll start this one off. Like, obviously, I feel it's not the most powerful, but like it's just annoying to play against is usually the steam tank for me. Like, because oftentimes when you do see the steam tank, it's like your Greenskins or Beastmen, and if you don't like have the adequate AP, like an Azag character to deal with it, and they're also using like overcasted regrowths on the steam tank, I don't know, that for me, that's always one of the more annoying units. But I would imagine yours is probably going to be a bit more of a competitive focus, like something that in competitive play like annoys you.
Yeah, I'd say so. For me, it's war wagons.
Really? Like basic war wagons?
Yep.
Really?
Basic war wagon. These used to be pretty bad. But they got like a huge 30 or 60% missile damage increase one patch, and all of a sudden, these are like Scourge Runners light now. Like, Lizardmen hate to see them. It's so funny, too, because they can shoot while in melee. So, like, you can catch them with cavalry, and they will just still shoot you to death while you're there trying to melee them.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, they did get some buffs, dude. I was not expecting the War Wagon, for sure, but, they are like Scourge Runner lights, right? And they got, what was it, an ammunition buff, or they got something else recently? What was it?
Ammunition, AP, it's a ton. They don't have quite as much DPS as like Outriders, for example, but they're much more sustainable with all that HP and the armor models as well, and the armor. And then on top of that, they can also fire 360. So
yeah, that's actually really nice. Yeah, for sure. I used one in a quick battle the other day, and I actually had a good time with it. But yeah, it's like, maybe the meta has shifted. I'm a little bit outdated, I guess. But the War Wagons, I always just with those buffs, I suppose. Like, I like War Wagons.
And they are so obnoxious.
You're saying like 3x3, so 3 groups of war wagons in total?
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's this weird like critical mass of war wagons that makes them capable of like shooting out one unit of cavalry as it tries to approach. So it's kind of difficult to approach them. It's really awkward.
The dreaded war wagon, dude. Yeah, it's I like war wagons in matchups in which you're worried about like dealing with like poison hounds and like skirmish like enemy dark riders, things like that. Because even if they get caught, they're like you can usually have time to save them or salvage the situation. But
Yep.
There you have it, guys. War wagon is the pick for Aerocrastic. For myself, it is the dreaded steam tank, and now for the Greenskins. And also for the sake of this list, if there is like a lord that you find particularly oppressive or something like that, feel free to include him. But we're now into the Greenskins. So what are your thoughts, brother?
Okay. This one's a rough one. If I had to say, I might lean towards stone trolls here.
Yeah.
I mean that is kind of the meta pick. I could say stone trolls, maybe night goblin fanatics, specifically the ROR.
Yeah, the ROR. Yeah,
it's kind of a tough toss up for me. There's a lot that Greenskins have that I have quite a few connections about. So
yeah, it's a smorgasbord here. Yeah, stone trolls are definitely very rough to play against because they kind of counterbalance many of the weaknesses of traditional trolls in that they're armored. They have big missile resist of 30%, magic resist, and leadership's usually an issue for them. But now that Bob is there, the Black Orc Big Boss, who of course gives the if you guys look here, I can pull it up. It gives the rabble rouse. They're like immune to psychology often too. Yeah, stone trolls are definitely a pain. Yeah, that's a tough one, man, because they have a lot of Greenskins are one of those factions that really know how to like poke you in the wrong place.
Yeah.
What would I say for myself? I mean, Scars, I would say like pre-nerf Skarsnik was pretty obnoxious too with like the fermented fungi. Like those abilities, man, are just like, you want to lose the game? Let's get them below 80% and GG, oftentimes.
Yeah.
River Troll Hag too with Mither, like it's so good. They have so many annoying things. But yeah, Stone Trolls I think would be a top contender for me as well. Because, you can use them in almost every matchup. I'm like trying to think of a circumstance in which Stone Trolls would just be bad. And like I feel like you can almost justify them across the board. Maybe not against like hardcore kite, but yeah.
Well, they're definitely up there. It's kind of an awkward toss up because they're also a very viable unit, but like I'll just say it here. Bob makes blobs, so
Bob does it, dude. Bob goes balls deep for sure. Yeah, Skarsnik, River Troll Hag for me, as well as the Stone Troll. Like probably Skarsnik. Whenever I see Skarsnik, I know that if I like slip up once and get caught in the fermented fungi, I'm just like, dude, you're gonna have a real bad time. Because like it got nerfed from what 30, like an hour to like how long is it now? Let me look. 17 seconds.
I think it got cut in half. So it was like 34 before, and now it's 17.
The 34 seconds. I remember. God, what tournament were we having when that came out? Like, and we were like, wasn't there? It must have been like some early access tournament. You were like trying to adjust the banner rules to it, and it's just like, dude, like that was.
Yeah. 30. I was seriously considering like limiting them alongside as being considered as like a net ability because dude, that was crazy. Yeah.
34 seconds is such a deep snare, dude. That's just like that's like a lot of Total War battles, like, yeah, there's like the advancing phase, like you'll advance on your opponent, but many Total War battles are over in like 2 minutes, 3 minutes in the hands of like, especially in mismatches with, some players and like being snared for like a fourth of that. It's just like,
it's insane.
Yeah.
Greenskins are a weird faction because of how they synergize with that too, because they're a very fighty faction. They want to get up in your face.
Yeah.
And if they can pull you into their face, then you're probably down for a bad time. But yeah, all these control tools can be pretty obnoxious. I think Nasty Skulkers get a pass just because they're like very, very low leadership and
it's hard to pull off too. It's not like point and click. You got to like time it, like be really cognizant of the engagement range and like you got to work for it. But like point and click or mouth breathing Stone Troll builds with Bob just like pushing over your lines, like you have to struggle super hard to beat it. Like it's I think you were quite accurate with this. And now for High Elves. So I wager I know who you're going to pick or what you're going to pick, but I'm curious. So what is the most annoying thing to you from the High Elf roster?
Noble Chariots.
Yeah.
Would be number one for me. Aside from that, there's also Illyrian Reaver Archers, which I think could take the cake. And they themselves, I mean, it's a good unit, but like they themselves are not really like amazing game carriers. It's more so what they enable build wise. So Illyrian Reaver Archers are probably the core of every high elf army that's like extremely monster single entity heavy.
Kitey.
Anytime that they kite you, the good old techless net double breath thing.
Yeah.
They're new ruptures.
Yeah, I think nobles and reavers are very annoying, but for me, dude, now after the most recent DLCs, bird techless, man, like nothing is more annoying for me. And I know he's not like maybe as arguably as competitive as the noble and the reaver, but bird techless, something about playing against him with like potion of Croy and like all the random ward saves he has, like he's got the physical resist, he's got potion of Croy, it's like regrowth, like mobile, dude. Playing against bird techless, oh, it's so annoying, man. Like for me,
Yeah. You try to focus him, and he does not go down. He just has so much stackable resistance. It's crazy.
yeah. Like looking right
Oh,
now, he has the 20% physical. The base,
yep.
most lords have like 15% missile. Like he's got 70% fire too, which it's not insignificant. There obviously are some fire causing units, but the potion of Croy being on like a minute long cooldown and giving 44% ward save and free healing.
Yep.
Like a free Earthblood, basically, in conjunction with regrowth and like his insane Winds of Magic generation that he has with the Greater Arcane Conduit plus his freaking Sword of Teclis. It's like, dude, like infinite regrowths, like super tough to kill, 120 speed. You can't like catch him if he gets away. It's just like, oh, dude.
And to mention something else as well, actually, all Phoenixes gain 12% damage resist when you have over 50% of your total Winds of Magic.
The attuned to magic. They get this good catch, man, because I totally went over that. And so you're
So
stacking that on top of everything else already. So so like when Bird Teclis has good magic, he's getting 20% physical plus 12% from attuned to magic. So more or less he's going to be sitting around 32 base against like most damage types. And then if you throw missile in there, he's going to be like 47 against missile attacks. And like Potion of Croy makes him like almost like 90% resist, right? Like if you're being attacked by missiles, which often is how you kill these type of things. Like they're flying around, you have like handgunners, deckhand mob gunners, whatever. But dude, Bird Teclis,
but he is a tank. Yeah.
Did you see that? We had a stream the other day where we closed out the stream by playing like a couple FFA games, and we had small funds FFA. So basically, the players, had like a couple thousand gold, and one of the guys, the gentleman who played in the FFA, there was no rules, obviously. So he brought Bird Teclis and another Arcane Phoenix. And dude, it was like the most oppressive small funds FFA I've ever seen. He was just like annihilating everyone, gooning characters. Like even like 2v1, people just couldn't kill Bird Teclis and this Arcane Phoenix with the regrowths and it's horrible, man.
Yeah. I guess there's a new bully in town. Some time ago it was vampire counts with their like double zombie summons or whatever in these small funds games, and I guess Teclis is the new contender.
Dude, he's so oppressive in small environments, like really really crazy. Now for Lizardmen, I think we're both gonna pick the same thing, but let's have you go first.
All right. I'd have to say the Dread Saurian.
Really, the Dread Saurian? Holy shit, man! Those are some hot takes, man. Yep. The Dread Saurian. Damn, dude. Saurian. Let's hear it, man. Let's hear it. What do you got for me? The feral or the basic Dread Saurian, or just all of them in general?
I'd probably lean towards all of them, but more so like just the normal one.
Just not the Shredder, basically.
Yeah. Here's the thing. So Dread Saurians, people view them as a very clunky, very awkward unit, and they are. They're massive. Their AI, as a result of that, is kind of weird. Sometimes when you're like trying to path through to other units, they get stuck on your own dinosaurs and start doing all this weird stuff, right? But the thing is that Dread Saurians, at their base, still have 52 melee attack, 750 weapon strength. If they get a good attack chain off, you're going to be missing like a quarter of your HP, and that happens in like a couple of seconds. And for factions like Vampire Counts, for example, that don't deal particularly well with these types of units, it is very obnoxious trying to deal with these. Like, it just sits there, tanks out, it kills your infantry, it kills your monsters, and you're like sitting there cycle charging it for like a whole minute or 2 minutes, and you're like, oh, I did half of its health, and then it gets a regrowth. Oh, great.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I don't play Lizardmen, so like I'm a little bit, or I don't even play against them that often. But yeah, the Dread Saurian certainly can be one of those things that like if you slip up once, it's like a high risk, high reward unit for sure. But yeah, and obviously lizards have access to Lore of Life too, so that can be really obnoxious, and nets. So like
it's basically a unit that you only see when you're trying to like cheese your opponent. So you've got like Pterodon spam, a Dread Saurian, basically nothing else on the ground, and then you just kind of like roll everything over with your monsters, and the Dread Saurian's at the helm of it. Like that's
yeah.
I hope I don't encourage people to do that, but a couple of Everchosens ago we saw Falcon do it to Soothsayer, and I can assure you that he was probably not very He wasn't feeling very happy after that for sure.
That's funny, man, because like I think you may have opened people's eyes because and usually the way I project the Dread Saurian is as a bit of a meme, but I think players like yourself who are obviously top tier and like you mentioned Falcon, like back then, like maybe you and him picked up on it early because a lot of people were just like, oh, it's a joke. But I mean, yeah, apparently this bad boy's got some teeth, man.
I mean, given its animation set and its price and all that, it definitely is a joke, but not a funny one. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, my pick would, you make a very convincing argument for the Dread Saurian. My pick would be the classic, the Chameleon Skink.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, like, oh man, yeah, hair pulled, like just like rage, especially because like you have to catch them and chase them. But I find even if you do catch them with like a Dark Rider or something like that, they still aren't bad in melee in conjunction with the poison. Like, oh, dude,
yeah,
like trying to catch them with Empire Knights was one of the most like infuriating experiences because they have like what 48 speed. They can slow Empire Knights down to like 54. You know? Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, and we don't need to go too much into it, but they're really annoying to me for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like this is a unit. These types of units in general are best dealt with by shooting at them, but they still have 40% missile resist, so it just feels bad when you try to shoot them also.
Yeah, it feels like super ineffective,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The Chameleon Skink, man, that's going to be my champion for lizards. And yeah, like countless occasions playing like mass kite lizardmen. I remember some of the times I've had like the roughest time against lizards was playing against Yali and Ali, and like I didn't really experience this too much, like mass lizardman kite, but like, as many chameleons as you can bring, a bunch of salamanders, and like then just cav, and it's like, oh my god, it's like you can't shoot them really that effectively. You have to chase them because they're in a loose formation, Like, oh man, I could go on forever. But definitely the Chameleon Skink. Those little bastards are quite annoying for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And next on the docket, my friend, let us have you begin with Norsca.
Ooh, okay. I'll have to lean on... Actually, this is a tough one for me. So if you ask an elf player, they will probably say berserkers. I'm not really an elf player. I'm going to have to say mammoths.
Mammoths, okay.
That'll probably do it for me. Like mammoths, I don't know what it is about them. It's probably their charge bonus coupled with the high HP, but they feel like they're just good at everything. You try to stop them, they just trample all over your infantry. Like you will literally watch one, if it gets a nice side charge through an infantry unit, do like half of its HP or more in one charge, and it just feels really bad. And then you try to land on it with a monster, and it gets spit roasted between two mammoths, let's say. And
yeah,
500 weapon strength, you really feel that. And the 10,000 HP too. Like I can't count the number of times where you look at Wolfric and you're like, oh, he's at a third HP. Oh wait, he still has 4,000 hit points.
Yeah. Mammoths are definitely. And it's funny you bring up mammoths because I remember. I have a very like vivid memory of like the Everchosen, that the one that you actually won, or one of the two that you won, obviously, because you're a two-time champ now, two-time. The first Everchosen you won against Coast, there was like, so that was when Depth Guard were like super OP. Remember like, you remember the early, like when we had early access playing Depth Guard, they could like solo like everything, even their like hard counters.
Right, an entire army.
Yeah, like they could literally solo like several thousand gold worth of units, but you were like, and they were pretty overpowered in that tournament, but you were one of the few people to beat them using Mammoth. So like, I think you were playing, do you remember who it was? Was it Indie Pride or?
I believe it was Indie Pride, yeah.
Yeah, and like most people who are playing Vampire Coast were just like forsaking the gun line and spamming like as many Depth Guard as possible and just trying to cheese. And you came in and like with all these Mammoths, and you were like the only person to like crush the Depth Guard cheese using the Mammoths. And yeah, it really... Yeah, it just brought back that memory. But yeah, they're pretty frustrating to play against. I feel like newer players especially might really struggle with them,
Yeah, these things just kind of crash into your line. Like if you're talking about a line breaker unit, this guy's definitely it. And boy, can it be annoying.
Yeah,
sure.
they're definitely up there. For me, it's Skin Wolves. Like, because I like playing Skaven. I like playing Beastmen. Like, and I feel like there's some matchups in which Skin Wolves are just so oppressive. And like, you think you kill them, they come back like regenerated at like the 8-minute mark in the game, and you're just like, God damn it, dude! Like stupid Skin Wolves. Yes, for me it's the Condom Wolves, as I call them, the Skin Wolves, and yeah, I just feel like they're so good in so many matchups. I mean, I've heard you and several other high level players refer to them as like Wind Wolves at times. Yeah, Wind Wolves, right? Like, I mean, they're not great in every matchup, but like the regeneration, the damage they can put out, though they don't have the best AP, it's still not bad, really, right? And
Yeah, they definitely win games for you. It's pretty obnoxious to deal with these guys for sure. And some factions don't have as hard of a time with them, like
Yeah,
Empire, for example, with an abundance of fire damage.
yeah,
But
like Knights of the
yeah,
Blazing
Skaven,
Sun. Yeah,
Beastmen, like all of these kind of low armor factions.
yeah. Like how?
Oh boy.
While we're on this subject, how do I haven't been able to crack the code? Like, so a couple months ago, right before I had my surgery, I was playing in your I believe it was your Salad Cup. I was playing in that tournament, and I got to the semifinals, and I was playing against Soothsayer. So
Yep.
he won the first game, I won the second game, Chaos vs Empire, and then we get to game 3, and I pick Skaven, and he counterpicks.
Oh,
He counterpicks
yeah.
me with Norsca, and like I was literally just like looking at the PC for like 5 minutes, like how am I gonna beat these Skinwolves? Like especially in his hands. And he obviously
Yeah.
brought like as many as you could possibly bring in the tournament rules. He's a great player, knows the game. Like I just couldn't. Like I was like, I feel like Hellpits don't really work. I've tried using like Storm Vermin. I've tried like the Warp Grinders
Yeah.
with Focus. It's just like I can't seem to win that matchup against an equally skilled, or in his case.
Jump through.
Yeah, how do you
have
do
to
that?
jump through a lot of hoops. So for me, like my preferred solutions to Skinwolves is to combine Plague Monk Sensor Bearers with something else, because they have magic damage to cut through that physical resist.
Okay.
And since Skinwolves also themselves don't have particularly high leadership, you can of course discourage them with that. Warp Lightning Cannons are the next, are also really nice there. They kill models of Skinwolves, so
Yeah.
if it's dead, it doesn't regenerate.
Yeah. That's a good point.
That, yeah, good luck.
Yeah,
Not much else.
that's some great feedback though, for sure. Because I remember in all the times we've played, you're definitely one of the more skilled Skaven players out there. So hearing that is good, because I really do like playing Skaven in competitive play. But that's one of the matchups I've always struggled with, man. Like it's you'll get a bunch of Skinwolves, you'll get like Wolfric on a mammoth, or like some sort of other mammoth, and it's just like it's like a threat overload. Like if you have a Warp Lightning Cannon or Jezzails, what do you shoot? The mammoth that's going to wreck you, or do you like shoot the Skinwolves who are often like dodging and like it's just like it's a hard one.
Yeah.
So yeah, Skinwolves and mammoths, definitely, man. That's the way. And now for Skaven, for your people, what do you got, man?
I mean, there's quite a few here. I think the biggest contenders for annoying units include RORs, but I feel like that's cheating. So let's stay away from those. And I'm going to put it on the Hell Pit Abomination.
Yeah, dude, I agree, man. We'll just put it out there. The healing proc, oh my god, it's so gross. Like
it feels so bad when you bring this thing down. It's on its last legs to 900 HP, and then all of a sudden, 50% chance procs, and it's got 2,000 hit points all over again.
Dude,
and the worst part is
horrible.
that it can happen more than once. So if you're really unlucky, you've got 15,000 hit points of Hell Pit to deal with, buddy. Good luck.
Yeah, the Hell Pit healing is so oppressive. I can recall many games I've won that I don't deserve to win because of like abusive Hell Pit healing, and like, oh my god, it's such like an RNG thing. But I feel like it almost always goes off. Like if it lingers at all, like it's gonna go off, and you're gonna pay the troll toll. It's rough, man. Yeah, so I think we can conclusively agree on that. Like for me, maybe a second pick would be like Poison Wind Mortars. I feel like they're really good and really annoying. But yeah, dude, Hell Pit all day, man, for sure.
Nothing like a little bit of RNG to rub more salt in the wound, right?
Yeah. The RNG thing is like it feels really bad, and there's a lot of effects like that in the game, like Heart of Avalorn, but like Tyrion isn't like as common, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, that one's guaranteed. I think this is the only one that's not.
What other RNG effects are there that are like really oppressive like that? The Hydra is guaranteed, right? Like it's like it just.
Hydra's guaranteed, yeah. So it gets something like 500 hit points every minute. So kind of something funny I see when people are like trying to focus down a Hydra, they'll like start attacking it, it'll get the heal proc, and then they'll switch to another target. That's the wrong way to go.
Yeah.
It goes off once every minute, so just keep shooting at it.
You got to go balls deep to finish off that Hydra. Yeah, it's I've lost so many games to Falcon because of that. Like, dude, like back when I was playing Coast a lot when they were OP, like I would, whenever I had to play Falcon, I was like, okay, this is the one faction I can like maybe beat him with, and dude, he would just bring the Chill of Santar and this other Hydra like every goddamn game, dude, and I would just barely, it would get away, it would come back, and I would just lose because I invested so much fire in it. It's like, yeah, Hydra's a great distraction card effect. So is Hell Pit, really. Dude, Hell Pits are so annoying. God, man. And now for Tomb Kings is the next faction. So let's have you open the gates, man. What do you got? You got the beloved Arrow Titan here.
Yeah, I do. I don't think people are usually too annoyed to see that one, though. If anything, I think it's probably the Casket of Souls.
Dude, hell yeah, man. That thing is horrible.
This thing...
Oh, God.
I remember some time ago that this unit used to be pretty bad. I wouldn't say like terrible, but it used to be pretty bad.
It was.
Now this is like guaranteed value. Even if the other faction can snipe it, you can shoot at just about anything, and it eviscerates, you know, whatever like precious Phoenix Guard or all these other really cool units. You know, they've got.
It kills all the fun.
It kills all the fun.
Yeah, dude, the casket is like, it went through a weird cycle because it was one of the worst units before. Like a year and a half ago, it was god awful, and then it got like overtuned to the point where like it. I remember playing like some quick battles in King of the Hills, and like you would see like a box of halberds with like 2 caskets and like, you know, Kotep in the middle, and it would just like, dude, they do exceptional damage too against like monstrous units. I found that like the caskets were wrecking like my trolls and my spawn and like things like that pretty effectively too, dude. And like, even aside from all the epic damage it did at its price point, like you also get the Covenant of Power, so you're getting power reserves for your whole army, which is great with like Ark in the Black, etc. And like, dude, it's so frustrating, man.
This unit just feels bad to play against,
and it's hard to deal with too. It's like, yeah, you can snipe it with artillery, but like sometimes it feels like it's not the biggest target. So
yeah, it's small, and you can even just stand in front of it with a Hyrule Titan.
Yeah, and shoot over it,
and shoot over it or something like that. It's
It's pretty annoying. Other things that I find pretty annoying on the roster probably are like Ushabti Great Bows and Nehekara Horsemen. Like Nehekara Horsemen, I feel like are an underrated annoying unit in that like for their price point, they're just so effective. Like they beat most enemy skirmish cav, and like they're also really sticky and like hard to get rid of in your back lines.
5k HP on cavalry is definitely a rarity, and these guys they're really weird. It's this like price point for cavalry most other factions don't have. I believe the only other one is like Beastmen with Centaurs, but Nehekara Horsemen trounce Centaurs.
Yeah, they destroy them. Their combat stats are great, you know, and they're unbreakable and they're undead and they cause freaking fear and like, you know, it's just like
they've got the full package. It's pretty obnoxious.
Yeah, so definitely casket, man. The casket is the one when I see it, I'm just like, oh, I have to deal with the casket for sure. Especially when I'm playing like Skaven, I'm just like, oh my god, screw this. Like it's just your council guard just get nuked. It's like, oh, it's horrible. And now, I mean, I'm sure you're going to love this next one, Coast. So, I mean, Coast has... I think, dude, the answer has to be Luther Harkin on his Terrorgeist. Like, I can't see anything else being picked.
All right.
What's your hot take?
Then. So, it's anything that has the lore of vampires.
Okay, that's fair.
There is nothing I hate more about the Coast roster than pistol summons, specifically. I don't know what it is about this unit or this spell in particular that triggers me so much, but like they last like 2 minutes, so they get mixed in after a while. Like after it's been summoned for a while, you just kind of forget which one is the pistol summon, and so sometimes you just like accidentally throw a burning head or something at a unit that was going to degenerate anyways, just because you didn't notice. For whatever reason, like I feel like you know, for other summons, there's this like little orangish, purplish.
Yeah, you don't really see it with them because it kind of the blue summoning hue, which it's blue and then it's orange. They kind of have a bluish kind of turquoise hue to them anyway, so it just kind of, I agree, it like blends in. It's very hard to tell.
Yeah, it's tough to tell, and then on top of that, like most missile units, you don't even need them to be shooting for longer than like a minute and a half, and then they usually get compromised or something. Well, if you summon them for 2 minutes and you have like 2 or 3 of them out at once, it might as well be like an actual unit of pistols that you just kind of carry in your back pocket. And I just get so frustrated when I play against these.
I definitely hear you. Like they're annoying, and the thing is, like, yeah, like summoning a ranged unit like that, obviously, like if they could be broken, wouldn't be as bad. You know, you're able to route them. But with them, even if you throw something on them, you put them in guard mode. So for those of you guys who are newer players, you can put missile units on guard mode and give them a shooting order, even if they're compromised in melee combat, and they'll try their best to fulfill that order by shooting. So like with Coast, you're not going to break them. So you can put them in guard mode. They'll still shoot like big targets, even if they're embroiled in melee. And I see that. I see that happening for sure. Like it's a really strong mechanic. But for me, dude, oh God, Luther, man, like his fact that he can fly overhead and just shoot you with like almost unlimited ammunition. And then also he can like beat pretty much any lord in melee combat. He can be healed by lore of vampires. Like, oh, dude, he's just like Luther. Playing against Luther triggers me for sure.
Yeah, he's a raid boss in every sense of the definition. Like he regenerates. He even has the hunger on top of that.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, so plenty of healing for sure.
Attack. Something that most people don't know is that extra powder, the passive that Vampire Coast units have that that shoot. That buffs his Terrorgeist breath as well.
No way, really?
So I'm serious.
So,
Yep.
so I was wondering that because I was doing a video earlier today testing out Luther, and his breath attack against Karl Franz did like a ton of damage. So that actually, so the extra powder buffs his breath attack. Are you serious?
I'm serious. Yep.
Oh shit, man. We're learning today. Arrow's taking us to school, man.
It's really gross. So, obviously, like, breath attacks are kind of a secondary thing alongside most of these like dragon-like,
Characters, lords, monsters, yeah.
Characters, etc. But for him, it is actually a viable strategy to turn Fire at Will off so that you have extra powder until you use up all of your breath attacks. It's gnarly.
Dude, that's some next level shit, man. Yeah, the worst thing too is like, oh god, dealing with Luther, like when you're trying to shoot him out of the sky and he's just like juking all your shots, and then like while he's doing that, he's like shooting your caster on the ground. It's just like, oh dude, end me. I personally think that Luther Harkin is the strongest lord in all multiplayer. Like him, maybe like Alariel with like High Elves is pretty freaking strong with like free regrowth at instant speed, but I think Luther probably is like, in my opinion, the strongest lord in multiplayer.
He's definitely up there. Like,
he's a contender.
Base cost of 2,400 on his Terrorgeist, and then with his most optimal kit, I'd say he's probably like 2,700 or so.
Right on the head, man. 2,788 is what you said, yeah, or what it came out to after I cut some abilities here. Yeah, 2,700, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's about the same price as a fully kitted Karl. And the thing is that Luther, unlike characters like Karl, they don't need their caster to babysit them. Like, Karl's getting fed regrowths constantly by his caster, so his price almost includes the price of his caster as well. But like Luther, you can take your vampire caster, you can do stuff with your summons, you can hack other things, and Luther just kind of does his own thing. If he gets into trouble, throw a heal his way just so that he kind of out-sustains it. But, oof.
He's a strong, independent vampire. And on that note, vampire counts. What do you got, man?
Vampire counts, okay.
Are you going to say Blood Knights?
I am not going to say Blood Knights, no. I'm thinking either Banshees or Vargulfs.
Yeah, Vargulfs. Dude, Vargulfs with their animation of getting like knocked over instead of taking damage is like one of the most annoying things in the game, I think.
Yeah. For the longest time, like, it doesn't seem like it should be this way, but Vargulfs would beat Hell Pit Abominations.
That doesn't happen anymore, though, does it?
I don't think it does. I haven't checked. I don't bother using Hell Pits against vampire counts, but for the longest time, like basically what would happen is that the Hell Pit would rear up its big attack, like running forward with his hind legs or whatever, and then it would just knock the Vargulf over before it hits it, and then the Vargulf gets back up and it just starts gorilla pounding, as you like to say,
dude,
slapping the Hell Pit.
Harambe pounding it. Yeah, it's the funniest analogy for sure. Yeah, their animations are just janky. They're super fast too. Like Vargulfs have freaking 80 speed, which for like monsters usually, like they are not in that ballpark, man. Like, yeah, and Banshees as well. So what your other point was?
Yep, Banshees definitely.
Yeah, Banshees are just so annoying to get rid of. Like so annoying. God.
Ethereal, very small. Like any faction that doesn't have an abundance of magic damage always has a tough time dealing with these. Like we're talking your Greenskins, your Lizardmen, all those factions. Oof.
Yeah, man. I was kind of unsure going into this one. I just had to like kind of guess. Vargulfs are really annoying. Banshees are annoying. Mortis engines used to be really oppressive, I think, but I feel like the times have changed a little bit, and there's a fair amount of good answers to them. Terrorgeist got a cost increase, unless
you're a Chaos main or a Beastmen main, Mortis engines probably don't
bother you that much. The Blood Dragon Vampire Lord's pretty goddamn annoying too. Like, but that's just because of the Helm of Discord. But yeah, like I feel like using him as a pick isn't like fair because it's just that one item. Yeah. Banshees for sure. Vargulfs, Blood Knights can also be really annoying just because of like how long they last with the freaking healing and being able to resurrect models of one of the best cav units in the whole game. But yeah, I think your analysis is spot on. It's hard to contest your points. So yeah, I think Banshees, Vargulfs, Blood Knights, Blood Dragon Lord probably would be like kind of in the ballpark. And now for Chaos. Chaos, they have like what annoying units they have. I mean, they have Spawn, so the same argument could be made for that. I mean, is Chaos like? Do they really have anything that's annoying? Like maybe Big Bird, Big Bird, right?
Yeah. I think they're kind of in the same ballpark as Bretonnia here, where like the annoying units are also kind of annoying because they're good.
Yeah.
for the most part. So like, yeah, I'm leaning towards Big Bird. He
Yeah.
used to be even worse. Like I think he lost some missile resist. He's has been and still is the bane of dwarf players everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, Big Bird is a pain. I 100% agree with your pick there. I think Big Bird, like the
My pick,
mobility,
that
the
was your
yeah,
pick.
yeah. I mean, I said it initially, but it wasn't like the final. Is this your final answer pick? Who wants to be a
Yeah.
millionaire? But yeah, like Big Bird, dude, 50% missile, 25% magic. Like he has a big HP pool, 6.1k, pretty substantial. Like high
Yep.
mass. Like he has this like weird splash too, where he really disrupts formations very well. It has to be the Warp Chicken, man. It has to be, right?
Yeah, he's number one for chaos there.
Yeah, has to be. Like what else would be annoying there? Like if we look across the roster really quick, I mean like baseline Marauder Horseman, but I mean like that's just not really like maybe like Feral Manticores are kind of obnoxious for their price point. Spawn.
Yeah, yeah. Manticores are for the most part just gooning units, so they could definitely be up there.
But Manticores feel worse when they're summoned because it's like if you invest shit
Yeah,
to stop it, you're having to like just take all that weapon strength in the face and yeah, it's got to
yeah,
be Big Bird, man. I can't think of any other contenders.
yep.
And of course, if you guys who are watching this video, if you're still watching at this point, um, what do you like? If you guys agree with us on certain things, we'd love to hear your opinions. I think it'd be a good talking point for like future episodes as well. Oh, and now for the last faction in today's list, which is going to be the dreaded Wood Elves. So, I mean, I think Way Watchers, right? Like, come on,
Way Watchers,
dude. Way Watchers are just like the most unfun experience in this game. I don't know what it is. Way Watcher Praven Athrema, dude, that just has crushed the souls of many aspiring multiplayer champ. I think it's rough, man.
Yeah, I think that anyone who has a hate for Wood Elves
It's the Way Watchers'
probably
fault.
feels that way has because of Way Watchers.
Yeah,
like like the number of times where you make this, like, let's say you're a newer player to multiplayer, you're like, okay, I'm gonna get my feet wet in multiplayer, test my metal against some other people.
going to ladder and
You know,
face Lotus Moon with with Way Watchers.
Way Watchers, you're like, you've got all these cool lords and all these cool units, and then 10 seconds in, you're like, net on your lord, Way Watcher volley, boom, snap, he's gone.
Yeah. You have to be like so alert and so like on point with your micro to avoid that too, especially against like these really good Wood Elf players like Lotus Moon and Zyphos. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like you slip up once, dude, and they're just gonna like trash can you. It's yeah, it has to be Way Watchers. I mean, nothing else there is really that annoying. Like maybe maybe the Lord itself who casts Prey of Anathrema, right? Like
Yeah,
but
there would be a contender,
but like Way Watchers, like even without prey, like if they catch you sitting in combat or like a caster sitting idle, like that caster's just dead.
you're gone. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really funny unit. Like competitively speaking, whenever you're walking into these tournament matches with very high level Wood Elf players, the question is not do they have Way Watchers, it's how many Way Watchers do they have.
Yeah,
When you're
they're
walking
always
in,
there.
you're already anticipating them. That's yeah.
That's kind of the unfortunate thing about Wood Elves in general, and like why I think they need a DLC so bad. It's because like they're so linear. Like obviously, like a good player like yourself, like Falcon, can get away with not using Way Watchers by using like Helm of Discord rushes with like Wild Riders. You back online, brother?
Just nod and follow along. Yep.
No. So what I was saying is, high level players like yourself and like Falcon and all these other high level Wood Elf players that we were kind of discussing, like can make Wood Elves work with like Helm of Discord rushes and Wild Riders and things like that. But like at the end of the day, you're probably just kind of like hamstringing yourself if you're not just bringing Way Watchers, right? Like you're just yeah, it's not as effective. Like they are a unit you have to bring.
That carries the faction for the most part.
Yeah, like how would they do without
really
them? You think like without Way Watchers, right? Like what would that faction be like? Just dumpster tier, right?
Well, I think taking a look at Falcon's most recent tier list kind of gives us a pretty good insight into like what Wood Elves look like without Way Watchers.
Yeah.
Wood Elves would be bottom of the barrel for sure. Like Way Watchers make a lot of difficult matchups for Wood Elves playable. And that's kind of like the sad fact about it, I guess. I think there's an over dependence on Way Watchers. Like granted, not every faction has to have good tools in every department, but at the same time, like Wood Elves are lacking in armor.
Yeah.
They lack like a mid and low tier cavalry unit. The distribution of armor piercing in their roster is really awkward. Like the running joke is that infantry is never actually anti-large, so you can just pretend that Eternal Guard and what are they called? War Dances with Azure Spears are just not there for anti-large. And then you've got Blade Guard and Way Watchers.
pretty much it to deal with your
Yeah.
threats, aside from maybe like a forest dragon or a Durthu or something like that. But yeah, that's the thing. Like it's a lot of like I've talked to a fair amount of newer players about like halberds and like, yeah, they're gonna bring some like constructs, or they're gonna bring like a mammoth. Oh, I got some halberds, right? They'll be able to deal with it. But that is like not the case at all. Like you gotta like halberds, like the second they're touched in combat, they lose their charge defense, right? So like you can just like send in like an Alariel type character like for a second to like unbrace them and then charge them with like a dragon breath attack. It's like you really do need mass to fight mass and or missile stopping power in conjunction with snares. I mean, some obviously banner rules, and most contemporary rule sets do make them a little bit more functional in that, like, at least if they're all that's left, they can beat these large monsters because they're forced to stay in combat. But cycle charging really does minimalize and trivialize the efficiency of like halberds and things like that. Like 100%, man.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, it's kind of an awkward spot. Like, I think I probably prefer it this way because I'm not really. I don't find like the Total War experience to be as robust or as dynamic when you're playing around very static armies. So I think I probably prefer it to be that way, but it still feels bad. When your anti-large is not actually anti-large, right?
It's kind of that's like almost a subject for a whole nother episode too. I think just the last thing I'll say on this is like I kind of think it'd be interesting if like maybe some spear units had like their own form of suppression. Whereas if a single entity is running amongst spears or like is in the middle of spears or being attacked by spears, what if they got like a 15% slow applied, right? Because they're being like poked by halberds, like, or they're amongst halberds. That like, I feel like that would be a kind of a nice change if it could obviously be play tested and balanced, like, especially for like environments where they don't have your rule structure, like banner rules, right? Like on quick battle, like people can just really abuse single entities. Whereas like if there was some sort of a suppression mechanic with like halberds and spear units against large monsters, and large entities, because like you would think if like a Vargul for a dragon is amongst a bunch of spears, they're not going to be able to move as fluidly as they normally would, right? Because they're literally being prodded from below with these long weapons. But maybe that's something we'll see in the future. But I think that's our last faction. I think we nailed everyone on the head, man. But yeah, it was a fun episode for sure. I think if you guys have ideas for future episodes, subject matter you'd like to see us discuss, see discussed here on the podcast, let us know. That would definitely be very helpful. But for now, I certainly think this was a pretty ridiculous one. It was like kind of a hybrid between units that are very good and very annoying, which I think is kind of a cool discussion. But so you're going to be getting your new computer soon, which is going to be what you were saying next month?
So I'll be moving on the 29th of September, and kind of around that time period I'll also be transitioning. So like the current computer I'm using will be getting tossed aside, and I'll be getting a new one. So
that's good. That's good.
Should have a much better rig.
So when that happens, obviously, if you guys haven't seen Aerocrostic's YouTube channel, he has his Meta Minutes podcast where he goes very in depth in the metagame of Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer. So there will be a link in the comment section below for that, as well as to his Twitch channel. So I think you alternate streaming on those two platforms as well. So there'll be links to all your good stuff. And obviously, starting next month, after you're able to move and get your PC upgraded and everything, that's kind of your limiting factor right now as to why you're not like streaming more often, right?
A lot of my content, so there's been a little bit of an employment shift up. So obviously I'm looking for work right now. So that's been my main priority. I'm just kind of taking odd jobs where I can. But of course, like once that all gets situated and once everything else kind of falls into place and my computer is capable of actually like rendering and producing videos at a reasonable rate, then you'll definitely see a little bit more content coming out of me then.
Perfect, man. So yeah, make sure to check out his channel, guys. And again, at the end of September, when he gets all upgraded, probably be more streams, more good stuff coming out there from his end. And of course, you're still doing the Meta Minutes podcast like every week, right? More or less.
I'll be resuming them a lot more frequently. The original plan was to go bi-weekly, so I think I'll keep to that.
Okay.
We're actually almost finished, so the next episode is going to be on Norsca, and after that's done, since I've covered all 15 of the factions in Total War Warhammer, we'll kind of go back and rehash and talk about some of the factions that have changed and any other topics that I'm interested in discussing or that you guys are interested in being discussed.
It's a cool format too, because obviously you're very good at a lot of factions, but you also, from what I've seen, usually bring on a guest who's like a specialist at that faction. So you'll bring on like the best of the best for each of these different factions, or at least like a very top level player at that faction, which I think is very cool, Yeah,
it's nice to have a lot of opinions to kind of bounce around. A lot of people might consider me one of the better like technical Total War players, but of course that, my perspective is one perspective, and I think it's nice to hear other people's as well.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, want to thank you for joining. It was certainly a fun episode. Make sure to check out Aerocrastic over on his YouTube channel and Twitch channel, which will be in the comment sections below. And if you have any ideas or suggestions, let us know. And Aerocrastic, I will give it to you. Do you have any closing words you'd like to say about upcoming content? Any farewells, messages of motivation? You're always quite inspirational with your quotes and your puns and whatnot. So what do you got for us, man?
Well, I don't have a whole lot to say other than this. Just thank you so much for having me here, Turin. It's been a pleasure. And for all of you guys out there, especially those of you going through tough times right now, I know COVID-19 has put quite a bit of a damper on everyone's mood. And, a lot of graduating students as well, having trouble finding work. Just, keep strong, keep your chin up, keep trying. For me personally, just a little bit of a story here, I guess. It took me 278 job applications before I finally landed my first one. So, we will be met with failure in life. It's always around us, but the most important thing to do is to never give up, because opportunities may come and go, but you'll never see them if you're never trying. So
it's good stuff, man. So
yeah.
In summary, pump them dwarven legs and keep going, guys. It's going to be good.
Beards and belts.
Absolutely, man. Thank you again for joining. That's going to be our first episode. Look forward to seeing you guys all in the next episode. And until next time, you guys stay safe and take care.